In the quaint coastal town of Mariner's Watch, whispers of an age-old mystery lingered in the salty air. Tales spoke of a hidden treasure buried deep beneath the cliffs, locked away by a curse that had brought ruin to any who dared seek it. The townsfolk, weary from generations of hardship, had long since given up hope, resigning themselves to lives woven with caution and a peculiar dread of the sea. One evening, when the sun dipped beneath the horizon in an amber haze, a young scholar named Ewan arrived at the town's only inn. A curious man by nature, Ewan had spent his life chasing legends, myths, and whispered secrets. His interest in Mariner's Watch had been sparked by an ancient manuscript he discovered in the depths of a library, written in ink so faded that only fragments of its curse-laden verses could be deciphered. Yet, those fragments had been enough to ignite his fascination. They hinted at the Jewel of the Abyss, an artifact said to hold untold power, a treasure sought by kings and lost to the endless waves. Drawn by a compulsion he could not explain, Ewan resolved to uncover the secrets lurking in the town's haunted cliffs. As he settled into his lodgings, a heavy sense of unease blanketed the room. Shadows flickered across the walls, elongating into strange shapes. Ewan felt a chill creep down his spine, but brushed it aside, reasoning that fatigue from his journey was playing tricks on his mind. Yet, as he tried to rest, snatches of the manuscript echoed in his mind. "Beware, for the jewel calls to those whose hearts it wishes to claim." The next morning, Ewan ventured into the heart of Mariner's Watch, seeking any clues that might lead him to the Jewel of the Abyss. The townsfolk eyed him warily, their gazes filled with both fear and curiosity. He noticed an old man, his hair as white as sea foam, sitting near the docks, his eyes fixed on the turbulent waves. Ewan approached him cautiously, sensing that this man held a deeper knowledge of the town's secrets. "Excuse me, sir," he began, his voice respectful but filled with eager curiosity. "I've heard stories of a treasure hidden within these cliffs. Do you know anything about it?" The old man's gaze snapped to Ewan, his eyes narrowing with a mix of apprehension and pity. "You don't want to be chasing after legends here, lad," he muttered. His voice cracked and weathered like driftwood. "The jewel is no prize. It's a curse, a blight upon anyone who seeks it." Ewan leaned closer, undeterred by the warning. "Please, I have to know. What is the curse? And why does it haunt this town?" The old man sighed deeply, as though surrendering to a force he could not resist. "Long ago, a sailor named Roderick came to these shores, filled with greed and ambition. He found the jewel, hidden within a cavern at the base of the cliffs, but the price of his discovery was steep. Roderick vanished, but not before the curse took hold of Mariner's Watch. Those who hear the jewel's call, they lose themselves, consumed by a desire that eats away at their very souls." Ewan felt a thrill, a dangerous allure that quickened his heartbeat. And where might this cavern be? The old man shook his head vehemently. "I won't tell you that, boy. I'd be no better than the cursed sailors who tried and failed before you." He glanced at the sky, now darkening with storm clouds. The sea itself protects the jewel, hiding it away from those unworthy. As Ewan walked away, the old man's words lingered in his mind, but his resolve only hardened. Whatever the cost, he would find the cavern, he would confront the curse, and he would unearth the jewel of the abyss. The storm that brewed over Mariner's Watch grew fierce, casting a tumultuous shadow over the cliffs. Determined, Ewan set out along the rocky shoreline, feeling the raw power of the sea pounding against the cliffs. Every step was a battle against the wind and rain, but he pressed on, driven by the lure of the jewel and the mystery it promised. As he reached the base of the cliffs, he spotted a narrow crevice partially hidden by tangled kelp and washed-up driftwood. He knew instinctively that this was the entrance. With a deep breath, he squeezed through, finding himself in a cavern filled with the eerie, echoing sound of dripping water. The walls were damp, glistening with a strange, phosphorescent glow that cast an otherworldly light. The deeper he ventured, the more he felt an unsettling pull, as if the cavern itself was alive, guiding him towards the heart of its secrets. His footsteps echoed, mingling with whispers he couldn't quite understand, voices that seemed to drift from the stones themselves, warning him, tempting him. At last, he reached a vast underground chamber, the air thick with an unearthly chill. In the center, atop a stone pedestal, lay the jewel of the abyss. Its surface was a dark, gleaming blue, as if it held the essence of the deepest ocean within it. The sight was mesmerizing, and Ewan felt himself drawn to it, his hand reaching out of its own accord. But as his fingers brushed the jewel, a shock of cold surged through him, and a voice, rich with despair and fury, filled his mind. "You seek what cannot be possessed. Turn back, or suffer as I did." Ewan's heart pounded, but he couldn't pull away. The jewel seemed to trap him in its icy grasp, showing him visions of those who had come before him. Sailors, explorers, treasure hunters, all drawn by its beauty, all consumed by its curse. Each one was shown their heart's greatest desire, only to be dragged into an endless, dark abyss when they tried to claim it. He fought against the pull, summoning every ounce of willpower he had. "I won't fall as they did," he whispered, though he was not certain he believed his own words. Then, just as he felt himself slipping, he remembered the old man's warning. The curse consumed those who lost themselves to greed. He closed his eyes, let go of his desire for riches, and focused instead on understanding, on breaking the curse rather than possessing it. A sudden calm filled the cavern, and the jewel's glow softened, releasing its hold on him. Ewan staggered back, breathless but alive. He knew now that he could not take the jewel, but he had gained something far greater, a glimpse into the abyss and a piece of wisdom no treasure could buy. Ewan slowly backed away from the pedestal, the jewel's faint glow still flickering in the dim light of the cavern. Though the spell of its allure had lifted, he could feel its presence in the back of his mind, a lingering reminder of the power it held. The way out seemed clearer now, and he hurriedly retraced his steps through the damp, narrow corridors of the cave, the faint echoes of those lost before him trailing like shadows. As he emerged into the open air, the storm had lessened, though dark clouds still clung to the horizon. He felt a strange weight lifted from him, and yet a deeper understanding settled in its place. A realization that some mysteries were meant to remain unsolved, that some treasures were not meant to be taken. Returning to the village, Ewan noticed the curious eyes of the townsfolk on him, each gaze reflecting a mix of intrigue and reverence. They could tell he had ventured close to the jewel and returned. An old fisherman approached him, his face lined with age and secrets. "You have seen it, haven't you?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Ewan nodded, reluctant to share the details. "I've seen it, and I understand now." The fisherman's eyes glinted with approval. Those who try to claim it are never seen again, but those who glimpse it and walk away, they return, wiser but forever changed. Ewan said nothing, only nodded in silent agreement. Days turned into weeks, and he remained in the village, a quiet figure by the docks, someone who had touched the edge of the unknown and walked back from it. Whispers of his encounter with the jewel grew, twisting into tales more fantastic with each telling. Some called him cursed, others saw him as a protector of secrets. As he watched the waves crash against the shore each day, he understood the delicate balance between ambition and respect for forces beyond human reach. And in his solitude, he felt a strange peace, for he had gazed into the abyss, and rather than being lost to it, he had returned with his soul intact.